So I had a patron ask me this question. Basically, what's my take on Jinx telling Vi you changed too? Because Vi didn't really change. It's a great question, and I have two answers that are opposites. And by the way, if you love discussing these things, Patreon is a great place to ask for my takes, discuss questions, discuss themes, characters, everything. So here's the line he's talking about.
I thought maybe you could love me like you used to. Even though I'm different. But you changed too.
And yeah, Jack's right, this seems inaccurate. Vi comes out of jail ready to do anything to be reunited with Powder, and she does, and that's very consistent with Vi pre-time skip. So what's Jinx talking about here? Vi didn't change. She's the one, and I mentioned this in my time skip video, everyone changes post-time skip, literally everyone except Mel. Sorry, that's for another video. Everyone except Vi. Vi is a resident time capsule. We put her in the sock drawer, 6 to 7 years pass, and then we tell her she can come out to play. But the whole world around her has changed. And this is a really pivotal line. Remember the context here. I think a lot of people aren't really thinking about this when they first see the scene, but Jinx's attack on Piltover isn't some sort of crime of passion. It's very premeditated. She brings Fishbones to the tea party with the crystal, knowing either I'm sitting in the Powder chair and happily ever after, or I'm sitting in the Jinx chair and then nuking Piltover. And what forces her to make that decision in the end? It's this line. It's her realizing Vi has changed. This fairly mysterious line is vital to understand if we really want to know the meaning of the show's ending. And let me lay out all the options here of what this could mean and why none of the apparent meanings really hold much water. Let's say Jinx is referring to Vi's actions leading up to the scene. The Shimmer Factory raid, the Sevika fight. Vi fighting against Silco's goons is nothing new. Let's say she's referring to what happened earlier in the scene. Vi refused to murder a helpless, tied-up person just because Jinx asked. I don't think Vi ever would have done that. That's not a change. And I think how most people understood the statement, and how I understood it at first, is that Jinx is talking about the big picture. Vi now cares for other people besides just her, besides just Jinx Powder, right? But that's always been the case. Powder was never the only person Vi loved and fought for. She risked her life for Vander, and I'm sure she would have risked her life for any of the other kids too. And if it's about teaming up with an Enforcer, that bothers Jinx at first, but I think she gets over that pretty quickly. By episode 7, it's clearly not what she's fixated on, not what she's concerned about.
Shut up. It's just a goodbye hug.
And we know she doesn't just have a kill all the Enforcers attitude, because at the end she leaves Caitlyn alive. She doesn't care. Okay, so that's the question. How did Vi change? Did Vi change? What does Jinx mean? So I have two answers, two theories that are opposites. The first is that Jack's right. My objections are right, Jinx is wrong. Vi didn't change. So then what's going on? So let's take a step back. ARCANE is all about change, right? The passage of time, how things progress, evolve, deteriorate over time. The story uses memory as a vehicle to show this. Memory is how we detect the change, how we compare. But the phenomenon the vehicle exposes also acts on the vehicle itself. We don't just change, evolve, deteriorate. Our memories also change, also evolve, also deteriorate. Jinx can't remember what Vi is really like. Vi in her mind was this idealized big sister, someone who always only ever cared about Powder and no one else besides Powder. That wasn't true, it was never true. Like I mentioned before, Vi risked her life to save other people. She was a big sister to Mylo, to Claggor, and to Ekko. Not as much as she was to Powder, but there was room in her life and in her heart for a lot more than just Powder. But memories deteriorate, they twist, they become idealized versions of themselves. So Vi comes out, Jinx sees her caring about someone besides her, and it doesn't match with her fabricated memories of her perfect big sister. And that is how memories work. It's a profound idea ARCANE is exploring here. And another great example of this is actually Vi. People brought this up in Wednesday's Character Ages video, but I think they're misunderstanding the line. So Vi says this in episode 5.
My little sister could do that when she was 7.
Just plain not true. No way. In episode 1, we saw Powder barely able to do something way more basic than this. And in this scene, Vi knows she can barely do it. She knows she's pushing Powder's limits, but memories deteriorate. They idealize. For Powder, it was idealized love. For Vi, it's idealized strength. For Vi, it's also idealized innocence. I talk about that on Friday in this one, the plot hole short. But this understanding of the line completely rewrites the type of tragedy this last scene is, and the type of tragedy the whole story is. The whole time we thought the challenge was for Vi to accept that Powder had changed, but none of that matters to Vi. She still fights just to reunite with her sister, it's all she cares about. And then, in the end, it's Jinx who can't accept Vi. Vi who didn't even change, but Jinx has changed so much that she can't see that Vi absolutely does love her like she used to. The only thing standing in the way of this bond, the only thing challenging their sisterhood, turns out to be something that's just another of Jinx's delusions. I mean, it is the trauma itself, really. It just makes the connection impossible. They'll never see eye to eye, they're living in different worlds. Jinx doesn't even realize, by the way, that she's projecting her own morality onto Vi. Jinx would totally kill if Vi asked for it. Vi just would never do that. But Jinx is so in her own world that Vi refusing this is this big sign to her. A sign of nothing, really. You know, we know it's nothing. But Jinx can only see the story she's told herself. Vi used to love me, only me. She used to be willing to do anything for me. Vi changed. What you want, Jinx, is right in front of you if you just open your eyes, but she can't. You know, she makes devastating decisions because of this. So that's one theory. Vi hasn't changed. The tragedy is that Jinx thinks she has. Here's the other theory, the opposite. Vi has changed. Clearly she's changed. How? Vi doesn't love her sister anymore. Okay, so I'm saying this in strong terms, but I do think this is the other meaning of Jinx's statement, and the way she means it is valid, it is reasonable, but let me be a little bit more delicate here. Vi will always love her sister, obviously, but she's horrified by Jinx. Vi is always going to care about her sister above anything else, but it's because she sees the good in her sister. Vi knows Powder's still in there, and she holds on to the hope that she can awaken that part of her again, save her from Jinx. But that's the problem. She doesn't love Jinx. She doesn't love who her sister is. I've heard this proposed as a much broader, more encompassing theory for the whole scene. What's with all the theatrics, right? And granted, fine, it's Jinx. Jinx loves theatrics. She's all about it. But put it this way. What if there is more meaning to it? Like, did she know she was setting up the I cut off your girlfriend's head joke? I mean, it's pretty obvious if she's seen like a single movie before, which she probably hasn't now that I think about it. Fair point, fair point. But seriously, what's all this about? There's a theory that this is all a test for Vi. Jinx is very aware and fixated on her mental problems. She's constantly thinking about them. She understands how Vi is reacting. So this scene, she leaves it all on the table, so to speak, and literally, for Vi to see, right? So this is Jinx at her most Jinxiness. This is who I am. Now, will you still try to get me to sit in the powder chair? It's a test. A Vi who is truly her sister, who truly sees her sister, only her sister, no matter who she is, as worthy of love and care, will accept her no matter which chair she sits in. She won't try to force Jinx to be anything she's not. Unconditional love. And the Caitlyn head joke is the first sign that this is how Vi sees her. This is Jinx using Silco's be what they fear Jinx advice, which we've seen her use before, but here it's not for a practical plot-driven reason. It's a situation of fear where we'll get to see what expectation that fear creates on Vi's part. And the answer is that Vi sees her as an absolute monster, even more of a monster than Jinx actually is. And Jinx laughs it off, sort of, but this is a failure in Jinx's eyes. It probably hurts to confirm that her sister thinks she's that far gone. But this is the point of the scene for her, to test to see how Vi will react to her. And that's why, and this is interesting to me, Vi almost passes the test in the middle of the conversation. What's the one thing she says that's almost acceptable for Jinx?
Powder, listen. We can just go. We'll leave and never come back.
And then what does Silco say that changes her mind?
You'll be with her a day before she realizes you aren't that girl anymore and turns her back on you.
But the let's go away together option almost works on her because that's not Vi choosing Powder, it's her choosing whoever her sister is. She's saying, you don't have to be Powder, I don't care who you are, all I care about is being with you. But Silco says, no, she's just saying that, she doesn't mean it. She does care, she absolutely will care, no matter what she claims, you know she'll care. And I think Silco is right, Vi does care. You think she'd be okay with what her sister is? You think she'd just accept this? It's sad, but she wouldn't. Vi is principled, she does care about people, and Jinx doesn't. Jinx hurts people. Of course Vi wouldn't accept Jinx for who she is. So I think this could be the change Jinx is recognizing in Vi accurately. Vi loves Powder, not her sister. So to recap, answer 1, Vi hasn't changed. Jinx thinks she has because her memory of Vi has become idealized and sweetened into this thing it's not. Love me the way you used to means I was everything to you. There wasn't room for anyone else, you would kill for me if I asked you to. All projection, all wrong. Or, answer 2, Vi has changed. Vi loves Powder, she doesn't love Jinx. She doesn't love her sister, she loves a memory of who Jinx used to be. And will fight not for Jinx, but for that memory, in hopes that Powder is still in there somewhere. Love me the way you used to means that Vi loved whoever her sister was, good or bad, crazy or sane, she accepted her and loved her. This is the Vi who really would go away with her and leave Powder and Jinx behind, but that's not Vi, at least not anymore. I think we can understand this exchange a lot better too now.
Are we still sisters?
Nothing is ever going to change that.
Jinx isn't asking, like, are we related? She's asking on a deeper level. Do we still love each other unconditionally, or are there conditions now? From Vi's perspective, of course we're sisters, nothing will change that. Of course I still love you unconditionally. I will never stop believing that there's good in you. I believed in you when we were kids, when you were insecure about your inventions. I believed in you back then when everyone called you a Jinx, and I believe in you now when everyone calls you a Jinx. That's also a form of unconditional love, never giving up on someone. But they're mutually exclusive definitions. I can't embrace who you are now if I'm always going to hope that you change. I can't hope for you to change if I settle for who you are now. That's the tragedy. They still love each other. Of course they still love each other, but each sister's love is perceived by the other as the opposite of love. Hoping for the future is condemning the present. Accepting the present is giving up on the future. One of Arcane's biggest strengths is restraint, and it can be a hard element to see the utility of. When we communicate generally just in our everyday lives, it's a value for that communication to be clear and thorough. Arcane uses restraint as a way of giving us unclear, incomplete pictures, which we have this natural instinct to kind of fix and clarify, but unclarity, incompleteness is an invaluable tool to create depth. It leaves the door open as an invitation for us to explore further understandings of what's happening. I'm so glad Arcane didn't fix the scene by making it clearer, because both interpretations tell us so much about how these characters think. And the reality is that ambiguity is how we think. The reality is that the answer is probably both here. It's the paradox. They're not conscious of these underlying premises and definitions. They're speaking with unclear, hard-to-understand language because how they feel isn't clear to them. It is hard to understand. And this kind of paradoxical language expresses exactly that human way we do communicate, those confusing human emotions we do feel. So how did you understand this line when you first saw it? Was it one of my two theories, or was it something else entirely? It feels like there's a lot of ways you could take this, and I'd love to hear new interpretations. Thanks again to Jack, my patron, for asking this question, helping me talk it out. Support me on Patreon if you want to ask me questions like this and discuss with me. Obviously, I love talking about Arcane. Can't really deny that. To be clear, I won't always make videos on every topic that gets brought up, but if the question is good, and this was interesting to me, my thoughts clocked in about 10 minutes, so it worked out. Comment section, totally fine too. Please comment and subscribe while you're at it, like the video. The little comic I used here was done by AG Nonsuch. You can check out her stuff here. Speaking of comics, I make a webcomic called Minor Champion. It's free on Webtoons. You can check that out here if you like superhero parodies. I make new videos every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. Thanks for watching.